Do you have special tips for week one of school? Are you feeling a little crazy if it's your week one? Well, I want to help reduce the overwhelm if you are about to start week one, or if you are thinking about a week one for yourself in the future. Tonight is the night for getting a clear 1 week plan, a first week plan to launching literacy centers and getting prepared for small group reading instruction. And I'm excited to share that with you tonight. So thanks for tuning in here to, let's see if I can get this right. I can't. It's too tricky for me. Reading Simplified. I'm Dr. Marnie Ginsberg, and at Reading Simplified, we streamline reading instruction and help accelerate students' reading achievement. And there's nothing that's probably more powerful than getting kids off to a great first start. Wouldn't you agree? That is how you get them rolling in a positive way as readers. How does that sound? So I'm going to be sharing tonight about launching literacy centers. Not just any kind of centers, but differentiated centers. So the kids who are here get what they need, and the kids who are here get what they need. And I'm also going to invite you to check out a 1-week plan to streamline getting into centers, getting into small group reading instruction. Even yes, the first week, even yes, in kindergarten. It is possible. So I am excited for you to be here tonight. So I would love to know if you have a week one tip for your colleagues. What is something that you do to keep the jitters down or to have success with your kiddos the first week in school, whether it's regarding reading or anything? So share one tip about how to thrive or at least survive that first week of school, whether you're about to start or you've already accomplish that first crazy week. If you share your tip, then you will get this delivered to you via Facebook Messenger. And so I'm going to be talking about this 1-page plan tonight and how it could work for you. How does that sound? So share your tip and let us know how you thrive in your first week of a school year. Okay, so I see Kristen and Nicole might be here, and welcome Barbara, and hi Jennifer, so glad that you are here. We are in week 2 of this session, launching differentiated literacy centers. Unfortunately, last week was supposed to be week 2, but I had a flood in my basement, and so I just couldn't get to the camera, get it all together. So I'm sorry about that, but now we're really into week 2. Week 1, 2 weeks ago, was setting the stage for tonight's topic. Okay, and so if you didn't check that out, I encourage you to see a post about it and the video where you can find out about stage 1 for how to prep for launching differentiated literacy centers. The main point that we made there is that there are a couple of big rocks for reading achievement that you need to keep in mind all year long, but also keep them in mind for the first week of school. And we talked about how the teacher read aloud and student reading practice together are those powerful big rocks. The most important things we've got to get into our instructional jar, so to speak, so that all the other small stuff can fit in around those big rocks, which are really the main thing. So if you missed session 1 for launching differentiated literacy centers, then head over to readingsimplified.com, and the first post you see there should be about this, the big rocks. But tonight we're going to be moving on and talking about that first week's plan. If you know that you've got to focus on the teacher read aloud and student reading practice, then we got to squeeze it in as fast as possible. But what's tricky about that, right? Okay, you've got kindergartners, they can't read a lick. Maybe some of them don't even know their letter sounds. How can you move them rapidly into student read aloud? The teacher read aloud may make some sense, but the student read aloud may have you kind of wondering if I'm off my rocker. So we're going to talk tonight about how to make that a reality, even with the littles. Okay, but of course, all of our kids, first grade, second grade, and up, if they're struggling with reading, can still benefit from quickly diving into student reading practice and not having to spend so much time with center preparation or learning the routine of school. How does that sound? So soon we will be moving on to talk about how to make this 1 week plan a reality. So I'm hearing some of you share your tips. Thank you so much. This is awesome to have all these tips. And if you're just popping in, share your tips about how to make a great first week. Just one tip at least. And if you share that one tip, then you'll get this 1-page plan here. And you'll get it via Facebook Messenger. So what are some of these tips that we're hearing from people? Jennifer says, making sure the kids get fed and get home safely. All right. So true. Let's see where we can put that. Maybe right here is good. Safety is number one, and security. I mean, they can't learn, as we know, unless their basic needs are met. So true. And Laura's tip is be over planned. The way you are never that way you're never scrambling for something. Yes. Yes, you always, my first weeks I had this much planned and I really got this much done, but that's better safe than sorry, right? Jennifer's tip is we spend a lot of time building community and teaching the expectations 1 step at a time. Not much academic learning the first week, just learning how to be at school. Absolutely. That's also important. The basic needs, and part of the kind of next layer of basic needs is how do I feel safe and connected in this environment, and can I be prepared to learn? So setting the stage is great. And maybe some of the things that I'm going to talk about today will merge with that need to build community and also accomplishing some academic things. So if you're just popping in, be sure to share your number 1 tip for surviving or thriving the first week of school, and you'll then get this 1-week plan. So let's dive into the 1-week plan. What I want to show you is I'm going to show you the plan, then we're going to kind of break it down, and I'm going to show you some of the major components of the plan and why it can be beneficial to you. I'm not suggesting that you all are going to do this to a T, but maybe it will give you some food for thought. And by the way, is the PDF delivering for those of you who have gotten comments? I would love to know. Okay, so we've got 1 week, 5 days. Notice it kind of gets, we add to it each day. There's some things that we do on Monday and we continue to do them on Tuesday, and so they're carried across, and we build and we build and we build. So the big picture, before I go back and kind of break each part down, week 1, we want to accomplish these things. We want to establish the read aloud as a high priority, a great time where kids are engaged and paying attention. We want to also establish independent reading time, like our independent reading center, even if that means that we will be looking at books and not necessarily reading. We want to establish a word work center, and that's super important because one of our big rocks is getting students reading quickly, and the word work will get them reading quickly. And then we also want to establish whole group switch it and read it, and I'm going to be sharing some ways to make that work. And if you don't know about those activities, you'll get a glimpse of them tonight, and I'll have an opportunity for you to learn more later. So those are our big picture goals. Does that sound good with you? Okay. So now looking at week 1, but also the first few weeks of school, these are the things that I'm recommending for you to get off to a good start. Make sure your kids are engaged and they're going to be succeeding as readers. So you want to have these 3 main types of literacy activities. This is not the whole realm of literacy. You might be doing some writing, you might be doing handwriting, but these 3 domains are going to help you set up centers and help you establish the teacher read aloud and the student read aloud, those big rocks, okay? So the whole group activities that we're going to aim for early on, this isn't for the whole year, but at least early on, would be the read aloud. That's the number 1 thing. Please make sure you're including it and prioritizing it and planning for it. It is so powerful. And then we're going to do build it and switch it, which are 2 classic reading simplified activities that I teach, as well as read it. So we're going to do that whole group. Now, many of you know, who, if you follow me, that we're always talking about how to meet kids' needs in small groups and even occasionally one-on-one with those activities. However, at the beginning of the year, you don't have time. It's probably not feasible to get everybody into small groups day 1, right? So get them started anyway, doing some activities like read it whole group with, from the very front of the class. And I'll show you how to do that and how it would be a great entree to moving them into small group differentiated reading. And then another big thing that you're going to be doing whole group, like Jennifer mentioned, is just, teaching and practicing and reviewing the procedures. How are we going to build a community that's functional? And that's probably your number one, pre-academic goal. Okay. And Jennifer says, please tell us how to build it and switch it with a whole group. Great. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight, but we got a lot to cover. And differentiate literacy centers. Okay, I've got a little typo there at the top. Sorry about that. Anyway, these are the big 6 that will get your kids reading words and becoming fluent rapidly. And then also developing the oral language comprehension skills that will also feed back and help them become good decoders, word identifiers, fluent readers. Independent reading center, a word work center, a listening along center, apps for word work, or computers and computer stations for word work, and then a retelling or enacting station. And then you may have others, but these are the 6 that I recommend to people who are in our Reading Simplified Academy, the membership where I teach the whole Reading Simplified system. And if you implement these 6 centers in the early days and then keep them going throughout the year by varying activities within the centers, you will see your students' reading accelerate. And then, of course, the other category that we're aiming for, we're not going to get there till week 2, but will be the small group activity. So while kids are in the differentiated literacy centers, the teacher will be working with a group of students, small group instruction. Many of you are already doing that. Let me know, are you already doing small group reading instruction, and is it already differentiated? How do you go about doing it? So those are our 3 biggies that will help, that I'm going to break down into this kind of ambitious plan. Okay, so this is Monday through Friday. And let's zoom back into Monday. Hopefully you can see a little bit of that. First, you're going to start assessing, even if it's just catch 1 kid for 3 minutes or 2 or 3 kids for a few minutes. If you're in kindergarten, can they recognize some letter sounds? Can they write their names? Some very fundamental assessing, so that hopefully pretty soon you can get them in groups. So I consider that all week you're going to be trying to sneak in moments where you can do some quick assessing, whether it's mandated assessments that you have from your school or district, or some little assessments that will help you find out what kind of triage information you can get to be able to group kids quickly. So the other big thing I hope that you can accomplish on Monday is to teach the read aloud procedures. And that is, it's kind of funny that it's such a big deal, but if you're an experienced teacher, you know that it is. I remember when I was in my early years teaching, I did not know how important this was, nor did just the procedures for any activity, nor did I know different ways in which you could teach it. Do you all have procedures for even something as simple as a read aloud? You might think, okay, kids, I'm going to read aloud. Let's listen. And that would be it. But do you have some other suggestions for the read aloud? Because I know that maybe some kids have not had experience with books. They don't know that they're supposed to, maybe it would be good to watch the teacher. It would be good to not make noises. Maybe you want to give them the freedom to move to other seating. If so, you definitely have to make that clear what you're going to do. I never, like I said, as a young teacher, I didn't learn about the importance of procedures, but through Harry Wong's the first 6 weeks of school, I believe, that book, that really helped. And then later on, I was amazed to hear what the 2 sisters taught in their 10 Steps to Independence. I think that is so amazing. They're the Daily 5 folks. And if you haven't looked into that, check it out. But they make a point of saying, don't just teach the procedures, but then do it like you would teaching real content. Have the kids pretend doing the activity, and then talk about how did it go, and then pretend doing it the wrong way and talk about how it goes. And so it really makes it sink in what are the procedures. So this is important. This whole focus on procedures is something that you can see throughout the week. We kind of repeat that. Once you teach a procedure, you're going to, that's the second row at the top, review each activity's procedures just before starting. So you keep kind of hammering that home. So we got the read aloud established. And then definitely about the importance of procedures, maybe even some of, non-examples and then good examples. And Jennifer has already gotten her small groups. Great. She gave them a quick assessment so she should get them into groups and jumped right in. Then she made some adjustments after the first couple sessions, but she now has her groups going strong. Congratulations, Jennifer. Yeah, that's awesome. These groups, and that's one of my messages tonight, they don't have to be fixed, locked in stone. It's just to get you started. So the read aloud is the first big rock for the year. Not only is it academic, but it's so motivating and engaging, and it's a way to build community. It's a way to share your love of books and connect with kids emotionally and really hook them into the love of reading from day one. Then the other big rock that we're aiming for is to get the students reading. So teach them the procedures for how to get them to be reading a book and practice them doing independent reading stations, even if it's just for 5 minutes, and you say afterwards, okay, how did that go? And you give them the routine that you want in your classroom for them to be independently reading. Okay, so that was day one. Then we're going to carry those things into day two. So again, of course, we're going to do the read aloud, and of course, we're going to do independent reading, but also maybe we're going to extend the time. So maybe we just did the independent reading for 5 minutes, and today we're going to say, Tuesday, we're going to say, hey guys, you did a great job yesterday, but with 5 minutes. Today, let's aim for 7 minutes, shall we? And so you keep building their stamina for each of the things that you're trying to accomplish. But then you got to also dive into that, the word work, right? The sooner you get them learning how the code works, the better. So build it and switch it are two classic reading simplified activities that we teach. I'm going to give you a quick example of switch it, which is a slightly harder variation. And this is one way to do it as a whole group. Okay, so with switch it, you would have, okay, maybe we'll change my settings here so you can see that better. Sorry about that. You might have a small group. You might rather have a board like this. Oh, nice. There we go. Okay. A board like this, and put numbers at the top so that when you ask the students to identify the sound that you want them to switch, then they don't have to say the P or the M, but they give you the number, and then you know that they've got the right spot. And that will help you focus on the letter sounds and not having to use letter names. So this is switch it really quickly. Okay, so we've got, let's make the word mat. Okay, girls and boys, I want you to listen for the first sound. What's here when I say mat? Okay, I don't want you to say it out loud. I just want you to think in your head, what sound do you hear when I say mat? And when I count to 3, we're all going to say the sound that we hear in our ear. And so then you get them to try to do a whole class identification of the sound. Okay, 1, 2, 3, what sound? Hopefully. Maybe they won't all do it, but that's okay. This is just to give them the procedures to get them moving a little bit closer to being able to do the activity. Okay, which one of these should I put here for And they hopefully they know at least their basic number so that they say, actually, here's the other trick. Instead of having them call it out, I want to see you put the fingers by your chest, right under your chin, that relate to the number that we're going to call out, okay? So if it's and you think that, say, is 3, then you need to put a number 3 up against your chest, but I don't want you to put it up in the air. I want this just to be for you and me. And so that's a quick way to scan the room and see who seems to be following and who isn't. Okay, I think most people said 3. Let's pop that down. And what's the next sound you hear in mat? Okay, so this is going to be hard. We talk a lot about how to do switch it this way, so I'm not going to go into it more. But if you comment in this Facebook Live, you will snag this PDF that's right here. Can't really point right there. And then you'll be also later given some options to learn more about this activity. But for those, since most in our community already know about switch it, we'll just talk about how to do a whole group. It's really the numbers, getting kids to do this, in front of their bodies so that they everyone can participate and not just the top 5 kids are getting it. So then they write, they create at. All right, you guys, we built the word mat. Now let me hear everybody say it together, and the whole class goes at. And then let's switch mat to map. what are we going to switch? Which one of these, which line should I switch to make mat into map? And so that's one way to do switch it whole group. Does that make sense? It is not the ideal for the whole year because you're going to have kids that are functioning up here and can be doing that work with 5-sound words like clamp and clump, and you're going to have kids down here who can't even follow a 3-sound word. So whole group is not our goal, but it's a way of getting them moving towards how to do the activity, maybe a little bit of segmentation, definitely some letter sound, and it's also a great assessment mechanism for you because you can see if somebody's putting 4 up and it should be 1, then that's a great tip. Okay, and Jennifer has a great suggestion. She says if kids have whiteboards, they could write the number that they think is correct and then hold up the number. Great. Whiteboards are great, and I'm going to recommend them for the next activity. And that would be another great way to see who's getting it and who's not. Thanks, Jennifer. Good point. This idea is just one of many. Okay, so Tuesday, we're doing the same thing we did on Monday, but we're adding another activity, that importance of whole group. Either build it or switch it. Build it you do if the kids don't know even 7-letter sounds on average in your class. If your kids on average know more than 7-letter sounds, then you go to switch it. And like I said, if you comment on this Facebook post, you'll get this PDF and then an opportunity to learn more about those activities if I'm coming out of nowhere with those. Okay, let's check on to Wednesday. Then you're still going to do the same thing, build it and switch it. Again, you're still going to do the read aloud, but maybe go a little longer. You're still going to do independent reading center, but maybe a little longer. And then you're going to do another teaching of a procedure of a new thing. And this time it will be a word work center. Okay, and then you really got to teach the procedures because this can be hairy, getting kids to all do the same thing. Or maybe different things. And in fact, that's what I do recommend, that you teach them how to do one activity at a center, but you still from the very beginning give them different levels. And even if they self-select into those levels, if you don't assign them, just show them that this is the way we're going to be doing things. Centers are a time when we're going to have different levels. And later, the assignment of the levels may be given. But at this point, perhaps not. So here's an example. So say you're doing an activity like picture word matching cards. So if you cut up these cards and they would have the word and they would have the picture and they would have to match them, okay? So you might have that be your center for that Wednesday, but you would have 3 levels, okay? You might have the CVC, 3 sounds with a short A. So maybe kids will draw from a box or from some sort of thing and pull out the pack of CVC short A. And then maybe another group will pick out a pack of CVC short I. And maybe another group will pick out a pack of mixed short vowels. So they have Okay, so the same center, different levels. Start that day 1 or week 1 so that you get this into the kids' mindset. And then it will be easier and easier as you expand your centers throughout the course of the year. What does that sound like? Is that doable? How many of you are already doing that type of thing? How many of you find that this is blowing your mind? Where's that blow your mind emoji? Let me know what you think about that. So that was Wednesday. That's really all that we're adding. So every day we're teaching. Probably only on Monday we're teaching 2 big things, the Read Aloud and the Independent Reading Center. Then we're only adding 1 new thing a day, but we're dragging all the others with us, right? Okay, so we got 1 thumbs up. So it's making some sense. So let's move into Thursday. Notice we're still assessing every day. We're still teaching each activity's procedures over and over again. We're hammering that home because that's going to make for a joyful environment and not one where the teacher's pulling her hair out. So again, we're going to do whole class build it and switch it. And now we're going to do whole class read it. Okay, so again, you might have up in the front of the class a dry erase board, and you're going to ask the kids to read a word. And you're going to teach them the blend as you read strategy. Many of you, if you've been following Reading Simplified, you know about that. If you don't, we will send you some information in Facebook Messenger later. But you would ask the kids just to not call out the word. I don't want to hear the word. In fact, you might hide it. Okay, and you teach them procedures. I'm going to show you a word, but I do not want to hear it from everybody until I call for it, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is show you 2 sounds, and when I count to 3, I'm going to ask you to put those 2 sounds only together, okay? This is the first 2 sounds. Don't tell me the word, even if you have seen it. I just want you to put the first 2 sounds together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. What do we have? Sa. Okay, that's great, you guys. Let's do that together. I think I heard most people saying sa, and hold that sound right there. Sa. Okay, when I lift this up, we're going to say the third sound. We're going to add it onto the word. We'll make the word all as soon as I lift this card. Are you ready? We've got sa. Let me hear it. Sa. What's the word? Sat. Okay, hopefully they can do that. And if they can, then you do the coaching for how to resolve their problems whole group. But if some of the kids are just totally lost, that's probably okay, as long as this is a short activity, you're just getting their attention. And then when you're in small groups, then you can give them the attention that they really need. And then at their desk, the kids would then, after they've written the word, and each of them, as Jennifer had mentioned earlier, they have a dry erase board and they write and say the sounds. Okay, so at their desk, they're going s, a, t. All right, you guys, you did it. Now let's do the erase game. You know how to do that? You say the sound as you erase it. Everybody at your desk, let me hear it. All together, s, a, t. And that is read it whole group. It's not as hard to vary it as it is with switch it. But it would be hard to give them the coaching if they have a problem. But again, this is to get them into the habit, give them the language of blend as you read, help them learn how to hold that vowel, learn the procedure, so when you get into the small group, they're off to the races. Does that make sense? Okay, so what are you guys saying? Dora says differentiating centers from the get-go is something I never considered before. I know I don't see it recommended that much because the beginning of the year can be so overwhelming, but I'm trying to present a way that makes it doable so that you can get them prepared for where you're headed and you don't have to wait for the 6th week of school to kind of get to full speed. Brenda says this is awesome. Thank you. And Peggy says procedures must be repeated multiple days and reviewed on Monday and after holidays. Yeah, sometimes in May you're like, didn't we go over this? And Jennifer, neat idea. She says she makes a worksheet that has pictures and drew lines for each sound next to the picture. These are put in plastic sleeves, and the students use a dry erase marker to write the sounds. They love this station. That is a great word workstation, Jennifer. Thank you. Okay, so then again that was Thursday, we introduced whole class read it. We're going to continue whole class read it, review the procedures, but hopefully it'll be a little easier. And we're going to do build it and switch it. So maybe keep it to 5 minutes each, build it or switch it and read it. Don't need to take too long. It's to get them accustomed to the activity and get maybe a little phonemic awareness, a little decoding going. You still do the read aloud, you still do the word work center, and then on Friday, teach them one more center, the listening along center. And even teach them the procedures for how to do that. That's probably more complicated if you have some technology, right? That's what's probably involved there. How are they going to deal with the buttons, and if it's on a computer or if it's on a CD, all that procedural stuff can be daunting. So that is 1 week. Let me give you a couple of tips about how to optimize this week. Make sure you've got this PDF by commenting somehow, and you'll get this PDF into your Facebook Messenger. We'll also next week go through week 2, and the following week will be week 3. So by the end of week 3, you'll have up 6 fully functioning differentiated centers, and you'll have small groups running for all 5 or 6 small groups. We're going to start small groups actually on Monday of week 2. Maybe that blows your mind, but we're just going to do it as a way to give them exposure that this is how it's going to go. And this, when the teacher is working with their students, it's time for you guys to be quiet, right? Always a little tricky thing. So here's a couple more principles for making the most of this time. We've already talked about how success begins with procedures, and many of you have affirmed that. And if you don't already know how to do procedures, I recommend checking this out from the Daily Cafe. If you just Google the 10 steps of teaching independence, you will find this, and it's a great series of steps. So it can be applied to any of the things we've talked about tonight. How many of you have used this? I think it's brilliant what they've done to teach this thing that needs to be explicitly taught to all us teachers when we're new. And it helps us remember things when we're older, and not to let this slip, because we take things for granted. And then one of the goals each day with each center can be, okay guys, we did 7 minutes yesterday, let's see if we can do 10 today, or 8. Set their goals for what they're doing, because when you focus on a book and you practice your reading, it becomes easier and easier each day, and one day it'll be so easy that you'll do it just as well as Mrs. Smith does, or as your mom does. And so that's what we're doing, girls and boys. Again, we talked about assessing from the earliest days. Even if you can get a kid for 1 or 2 minutes, get them, a kindergartner, to write their name for you. Of course, that could be done whole group. And if you don't have a sense of what would be good early tests, you can go to this website, readingsimplified.com/reading-tests, to get some free examples of some of the most critical elements of knowing where a kid needs to be, particularly for older kids who are struggling. We talked about this, definitely from all the centers. If you can, differentiate them from the beginning, even if you don't tell them who to go to, CVCA or CVCI. Just show them, oh, we've got these 3 boxes, choose one. And then later you will probably assign it. This is maybe not something that everyone does, but I want you to consider this for the read aloud, because it's such a big thing. It's a big rock for us. I recommend, as you consider at least into week 2 and week 3, that you always have 2 read alouds going. How does that strike you? If it were me, I would have a read aloud novel going all year round. Different novels, of course, one after the other, because there's that connected story. They're great literature. It's kids, clamor for what happened. I want to get into chapter 3. It's just a great community builder. Of course, great language building. But then if you are always doing a novel, it may not be as easy to teach particular concepts, like literary concepts or even social studies and science concepts. So I would also be doing a picture book almost every day as well. That's going to be teaching something like a reading comprehension strategy, or teaching some specific knowledge areas. Maybe it can align with some science concepts or social studies or math. So consider that as you think about your read aloud. The first week, maybe that's too much. But maybe long term, have the approach where you always have a novel, even for those kindergartners, even for the pre-K kids. They can handle it. Most kids can handle books 2 years above their grade level. In fact, that's probably the best place to aim for, so they're stretching with their oral language. Thank you. Okay, and here's some principles for independent reading. Remember, we talked about getting that independent reading center started like day 2 or day 3. So, of course, I bet most of you already believe in this and are practicing this. Give them choice, maybe constrained choice, but definitely some form of choice so that they are motivated, and expose them to the rich world of literature that's available. Some can read a graphic novel, some can read a nonfiction book, some can read a magazine, etc. You might even try to do it in 2 different times across the course of the day, because it's so important, and because you're trying to break it down, keep it small so it's successful. If you go 15 minutes and a third of the kids are picking their nose and looking at the ceiling, then it's not success, right? So if you do small chunks of it and they're always successful, and kids are disappointed when they're done, that's a great way to know that you're getting the most bang for your buck. So with the choice, definitely give them some freedom to pick what they want, but then over time, maybe there are some boundaries, so that you teach them, okay, what is a good fit book? If it's frustrating for you, let's put it back and try something else. Maybe even you give them a certain level. But think about that. And then also long range, think about book binders or boxes. So if they're reading, particularly once they get into small group reading instruction with the teacher, they're going to take a text that they need to reread several times. They're going to reread it that day, and then all the rest of the week, because they're going to target one sound at a time. We've talked about that in recent Facebook Lives. so they can collect those in a binder or in a box that's at their table or at their special spot. Then that's one way that when there's free time, they can always go to that, right? Should be a privilege for them. So that is how to dive into week 1, moving yourself towards launching differentiated literacy centers, considering the things that are probably going to move the needle the most for your students, which are those big rocks of the student read aloud and the teacher read aloud. And of course, getting the kids to engage and follow the teacher, and so you're not wasting instructional time. I hope this has been beneficial, and let's see if there's any questions or comments. Laura says that small groups are difficult. I always feel awkward. I would rather do one-on-one. I would too, but it's not always a reality for many classroom teachers. So I think that we don't have any more comments, so we're going to sign off. Thank you for the thumbs up and the hearts. And if you haven't gotten this PDF yet, go ahead and make some kind of comment here in the Facebook Live, and Messenger will send it to you immediately. And then again, like I said, if you don't understand what I'm talking about exactly with Build It, Switch It, and Read It, you'll be given an opportunity to learn more again in Facebook Messenger. So stay tuned for next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern when we will talk about week 2, and the week after that will be week 3. Thanks and good night.